Minister, the financial pressure that is placed on families providing full-time care for a child can be horrendous. A recent study from the National University of Ireland, Galway, found that the average annual cost for families of an autistic child amounted to €28,000, relating to private services, lost income and informal care. The current incapacitated child credit is just €3,300, which is insufficient to meet the costs facing parents.
Thank you. And I propose Cathaoirleach to take questions 79 and 132 together. The legislation governing entitlement to the incapacitated child tax credit is contained in section 465 of the Taxes Consolidation Act of 1997 as amended. The legislation provides that an individual is entitled to a tax credit of €3,300 per qualifying child for a year of assessment if he or she proves that at any time during the year of assessment he or she has a child who is under the age of 18 and is permanently incapacitated by reason of mental or physical infirmity, or if over the age of 18 at the beginning of the year is permanently incapacitated from maintaining her or himself and has become so permanently incapacitated either before reaching 21 years of age or after that age while receiving full-time instruction at any university, college, school or other educational establishment. A child under 18 is regarded as permanently incapacitated by reason of infirmity only if that infirmity is such that if the child were over the age of 18, there would be reasonable expectation that he or she would be incapacitated from maintaining him or herself. For the purposes of the credit, maintaining means the ability to support oneself by earning a living from working. In order to establish entitlement to the credit in respect of any such child, medical evidence provided by the child's medical practitioner is required to confirm both the extent of the incapacity and whether the incapacity permanently prevents the child from being able in the long term to maintain him or herself independently when over the age of 18. This is detailed information in relation to the operation of this credit is available on the Revenue website. This is a matter that was assessed, albeit it was assessed some time ago in 2009 when the former Commission of Taxation recommended that for reasons of equity that ultimately the appropriate level of state support be provided to all incapacitated children through direct expenditure and that the tax credit be discontinued. Such a course of action would obviously require very careful consideration and is not being considered at the present time. Equally, while tax measures are monitored by my department as a matter of course, currently I don't have plans for a detailed review of the credit, but I'm sure maybe Deputy Naughton wants to raise particular issues in relation to the operation of the credit, and I'll respond back at that point.
Thanks, Minister. The 2019 research by NUIG, the research was carried out by Anya Roddy and Kieran O'Neill, and that research shows that the average annual cost per child for families amounted to €28,464.69, related to private autism services, lost income and informal care. By comparison, the annual state expenditure per child with autism in terms of related health, social and education resources was €14,192. So that means that families were out of pocket to the tune of €9,489.60. Now, the key findings have shown that there is a significant economic burden associated with autism among children and adolescents in Ireland, and that a considerable proportion of this is being borne directly by parents rather than by the state. Now, this is also being reflected in the costs faced by other parents of children with disabilities, and that's why, Minister, I believe, in light of this research, we need to look at this again.
Thank you, Deputy, and I'd be interested actually in seeing that research. I'm sure if it's possible for you to give me a copy of it. The Deputy will be aware that there is tax relief available on medical expenses and on many different forms of healthcare. But look, I entirely recognise that if you're a family looking after a child that has a very, very high level of medical need, the costs involved in this from a financial point of view, I know they are very, very exceptional. What the government does try to do through support that we make available to that family through measures in the social welfare code and through a tax code does try to provide a meaningful contribution to the costs that those families face. But I know in many cases the costs are rising. They can be great, happening at very difficult times for a family. And as I said, Deputy Naughton, very happy to have a look at that particular report that you've referred and see if there's anything in it that should lead to a revision of our thinking in relation to the operation of this credit.
Minister, can I thank you for your constructive response, and I just want to acknowledge that, because the out-of-pocket expenses for private therapeutic interventions and assessments were the highest category of medical costs associated, and the average cost incurred by families was €948, but there was a considerable variation in that, ranging from €0 right up to €14,400. Now, Minister, part of that variation is the variation in access to services. I'll give you one practical example. The waiting list at present for occupational therapy and assessments in the west of Ireland is in excess of 2 years. Families are forced to go privately to get an assessment, which costs anywhere between €500 and €1,500, and the ongoing costs per session are between €75 and €100. Now, the state is failing in its obligation to provide early intervention to these children. They cannot get access to the public services, and families are forced to go down the road of trying to source private services. This whole area needs to be looked at and resourced properly, and give every child, regardless of family resources, the opportunity to get access to those vital services early.
Thank you. Well, the issue of the funding of the really important services that Deputy Naughton refers to is separate to the operation of this credit. But I know that the Minister for Public Expenditure and the Minister for Health did an awful lot of work in the run-up to the recent budget to significantly increase the funding that is available for many of the services that the deputies refer to. And I know that Minister McGrath also worked with Minister Foley in relation to help that can be given to young children who need additional support in our schools. But to go back to the original point the deputies raised, if you give me a copy of the report, I'll be very happy to have a look at it.